Hello and welcome to another episode of The Week Gone By. I'm Southasia and I'll give you a brief of all the news that has happened in South Asia and beyond in the last week. After nearly 3 weeks of protests, the people in Egypt finally got what they were demanding. In a short speech of only 50 words, the country's vice president announced in a televised address that the president stepped down from his office and had handed over authority to the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces. But before this took place, another week-long agitation continued in the land of the pyramids, and the whole world waited with bated breath as what would be the final outcome of the revolution.
It was February 6th, and the Muslim Brotherhood said in a statement that has decided to participate in a dialogue round in order to understand how serious the officials are in dealing with the demands of the people. But however, protests continued in Tahrir Square and there were reports of gunshots fired by the army. Next day on February 7th, thousands of people again camped out in Tahrir Square, refusing to budge. A symbolic funeral procession was also held for journalist Ahmad Mahmood, who was shot as he filmed the clashes between protesters and riot police from his Cairo's office. Egypt's government meanwhile approved a 15% raise in salaries and pensions in a bid to appease the angry masses. February 8th, and the protesters continued to gather at the Tahrir Square, which slowly started to resemble a tented camp, and the city saw possibly the biggest crowd of demonstrators. The Egyptian Vice President Omar Suleiman also warned that his government can't put up with the continued protest for a long time. But separately, he did announce a slew of constitutional and legislative reforms to be undertaken by yet to formed committees. The next day, the labour unions joined protesters in the street, with some of them calling for Mubarak to step down, while others simply called for better pay. Also, reports by Human Rights Watch came out on February 9th, and it stated that 302 people have been killed since the start of Egypt's pro-democracy uprising last month. Meanwhile, Egypt's foreign minister told Al Arabiya Network that Egyptian army could step in to protect the country from an attempt by some adventurers to take power. On Thursday, February 10th, Mubarak gave a televised speech where he repeated his promise to not run in the next presidential elections and to continue to shoulder his responsibilities in the peaceful transition that he said will take place in September. Protesters in central Cairo's Tahrir Square reacted with fury at his decision, and they waved their shoes in the air and also demanded the army to join them in the revolt. The end of the week came close and Egyptian military appeared to assert its leadership on Friday amid growing indications that President Hosni Mubarak was yielding all power. A Western diplomat reportedly said that Mr. Mubarak had left the capital. Reports also quoted a local government official saying that Mubarak was in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. On the other hand, protesters were swarming into the streets from Friday morning for what was expected to be the biggest and the most volatile demonstrations in the 3-week revolt. But finally, the news came. What Egyptians had been protesting for 18 days. Hosni Mubarak, the Egyptian president, resigned from his post and handed over his powers to the armed forces. Vice President Omar Suleiman announced in a televised address that the president was leaving his office and had handed over the authority to the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces. Suleiman's short statement was received with a roar of approval and by celebratory chanting and flag waving from a crowd of hundreds of thousands in Cairo's Tahrir Square, as well by pro-democracy campaigners who attended protests across the country on Friday.
In another update, federal ministers of Pakistan on Wednesday submitted their resignations to Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani, who decided to appoint a smaller cabinet in order to reduce government spending at a time of economic crisis.
Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani paid tribute to his cabinet colleagues as he announced the move live on television. Trimming the cabinet was one of a series of demands made last month by the opposition Pakistan Muslim League and party of Nawaz Sharif. They gave the Prime Minister 45 days to implement the reforms or risk having ruling the Pakistan People's Party kicked out of government in Punjab province. Later during the week, President Asif Ali Zardari swore the first batch of ministers into the new cabinet. A reduction in size of the cabinet is required under the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, which stipulates it should be no larger than 11% of Parliament, which would be a maximum of 49 members. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi was one of the casualties of Friday's cabinet reshuffle, as he not only lost his portfolio but also refused to take another ministry that was offered to him by the Prime Minister. Previously, the State Minister for Finance Hina Rabbani Khar was given the charge of State Minister for Foreign Affairs. Also, it was during the last week that Pakistan President Asif Ali Zardari continued in his efforts to persuade leaders of political parties to attend the roundtable conference he had proposed to address important national issues. The president also placed a telephone call to the PMLN chief Nawaz Sharif, inviting him to the conference, for which no date has been so far announced.
Time now to check out some more updates from Pakistan. Well, last week also did not fare well for a country as a number of blasts rocked the various parts of Pakistan, leaving numerous dead and injured.
At least one tanker believed to be carrying fuel for NATO forces across the border in Afghanistan caught on fire while stuck in a traffic jam in Peshawar area. The fire started on Tuesday afternoon and it quickly spread to other tankers and vehicles nearby, releasing huge black fumes of smoke. There was no immediate report of casualties and it was unclear whether the blaze was sparked accidentally or the result of an attack. 4 bomb blasts in 4 hours rocked Pakistan's Gujranwala town in the early hours on Wednesday. The explosions took place near the CIA police station, Special Operation Branch building and the CPO office. The back wall of the police station was severely damaged, but however no loss of life was reported. The bomb disposal squad arrived at the scene immediately after the blast and defused one bomb that was kept in a plastic dumpster near the police station. Also the very same day, 1 person died and 5 others received injuries in a blast in Pakistan's Charsada district. The man killed was on a donkey cart that was passing underneath the bridge when the bomb went off. Pakistan police stated that the bomb was planted in a donkey cart itself. The very next day, a suicide bomber struck a military facility in northwestern Pakistan, killing at least 31 soldiers and wounding more than 40 others. Authorities said that the soldiers were busy in their early training session in Mardan when a teenage bomber dressed in a school uniform walked up to them and detonated the explosives. Also on Thursday, militants blew up the largest gas pipeline in southwestern Pakistan for a second time, leaving tens of thousands of consumers without gas. The pipeline, which links the insurgency-hit province of Balochistan to gas reserves at Sui, was blown up on Tuesday and had been down until repair work was completed late on Wednesday. Authorities confirmed the fresh attack but said it would take another 2 days to restore supplies to 200,000 consumers in the province. Suspected militants blew railway tracks at 6 places on Friday in Pakistan's southern province of Sindh. 2 people were injured in the explosion near Baloch Colony Bridge area in Karachi, but thankfully no casualties were reported in other explosions in Hyderabad, Nawab Shah and Mehrabpur districts. While railway tracks were exploded in Husainabad area of Hyderabad, 2 blasts uprooted railway tracks in Nawab Shah and 2 more tracks were exploded in Sindh area of Mehrabpur.
Now making a fresh attempt to restart the bilateral dialogue process, Indian Foreign Secretary Nirupama Rao and a Pakistani counterpart Salman Bashir met up in Thimphu early last week. Both sides described the talks as an exploratory mission to revive the dialogue process.
Indian Foreign Secretary Nirupama Rao reportedly said that India and Pakistan intend to resume activities that had been put in abeyance. She has said that there are steps which could be taken, like having confidence-building measures and addressing trust deficit. She even added that people-to-people exchanges, counter-terror measures, narcotics and trade across the LOC are areas which also have to be facilitated in a better manner. Moreover, Pakistan Foreign Office spokesman Abdul Basit said later in the week that all outstanding issues including Kashmir would be discussed in talks with India. Abdul Basit further added that the meetings of foreign secretaries of India and Pakistan held in Thimphu remained very positive, where both the countries decided to resume foreign ministerial level talks. India's External Affairs Minister S.M. Krishna on Friday moreover said that the move to resume talks with Pakistan on all outstanding issues was a conscious decision. Krishna also added that it was necessary for both the sides to also discuss Afghanistan. Pakistan Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani too expressed his satisfaction on the decision taken by both Pakistan and India to resume bilateral dialogue on full scale. Gilani also said that the latest development was a culmination of efforts made by him along with Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh during the last few months and most notably at Thimphu last April during the SAARC summit.
And finally, Prime Minister Khanna unveiled a three-member cabinet comprising of ministers from his own party, the CP and UML. Bharat Mohan Adhikari was sworn in as the new Deputy Prime Minister, while Bishnu Paudel and Gangalal Tuladhar as Cabinet Ministers.
Meanwhile, the USP Maoists reiterated that it won't join the government until the UML expresses its commitment to implement the 7-point agreement signed between the two parties. A meeting of the Maoist Standing Committee approved the decision of the party leadership. Moreover, Nepali Congress Central Member and spokesperson Arjun Narsingha Kesi warned that the current leftist coalition dominated by CP and UML and the USP and Maoist could cost the peace process dear. He also expressed his party's disapproval with the secret 7-point agreement signed ahead of the prime ministerial election.
The International Monetary Fund said last week that the Bangladesh government must fulfill around 10 conditions in the current fiscal year to get the IMF loans. Setting the conditions last month, the IMF said that the loan proposals are likely to be placed before the IMF board meeting this month if the government clears its position in this regard.
One of the main conditions include withdrawal of the ceiling on a lending rate and reduction of loss incurred by the three major state-owned enterprises to get the IMF loans. Bangladesh Bank in 2009 had capped the interest rate of 13% on loans of the commercial banks to encourage the investment and cut the cost of business. The businessmen have long been saying that the interest rate in Bangladesh is too high and have demanded that it be lowered. The IMF conditions are based on the commitments that the finance minister had made in his last 2 years' budget speeches. To get a $1 billion loan as budget support, the government has held a series of talks with the organization in the last few months in efforts to fulfill the conditions. Finance Minister A.M.A. Mohit also held discussions with the ministries concerned when officials of some ministries projected their reservations about some of the conditions. Some of the other conditions are drafts of new VAT and income tax laws to be placed in Parliament by June, to establish monitoring framework for Bangladesh Petroleum Corporation, Bangladesh Chemical Industries Corporation and the Power DVPT Board to raise budget appropriation for covering projected loss. Audits of the state-owned commercial banks by international auditors must be completed in the given period. Besides, proposals for amending the Bank Company Act should be placed in Parliament by September to improve the governance of all commercial banks, including SCBs. The recapitalization by December of the SCBs, which have about 1,200 crore taka capital deficit. Another major condition is to formulate a plan to clearly delineate the approval and implementation process of the annual development program.
We will now wrap up this edition of the Week Gone By here. I'll be back next week again with more news and updates from across South Asia. Till then, goodbye and keep watching TV South Asia.